Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to your next cast. Thank you so much for checking out another episode. If you are new to this channel, I appreciate you stopping by. I hope you leave a comment below and let me know you stopped by. I'd love to connect with you. And if you enjoy this content and find it helpful, I hope you'll hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. Today's video is really just to answer a question that I have been asked a couple of times by people who are just getting into fishing. And that is, what is the difference between a bait casting reel and a spinning reel? Or another way I hear this question asked to me is, why do you use the bait casting reel sometimes and sometimes you use the spinning reel? And so in today's video, I just want to give some basic understanding of the difference between the two styles and why I personally use them. A lot of people use the different reels for different techniques and different purposes, so that can always vary, but here's how I typically use it. So I'm going to start with the spinning reel first. And so these are called reels, not rods. I oftentimes interchange the two. Growing up, I would always just say a rod and not really, pronounce it as a reel. But this is what it is. And so it reels, like it retrieves line, and it allows you to cast line out. And so the line goes on here in a vertical fashion. So when you spool it, the line spools around like this. When you cast it, of course, imagine that there is a rod on the back of this. And this, I'm holding this as a left hand retrieve. I typically do, well, I'll get into that a little bit later of why that is for me. But this is a left hand retrieve. Most spinning reels that you get, you can interchange. So I'm not going to do it right now, but I could take this knob off and switch this to this side and make it a right-handed. I can't tell you how many times I've seen people, and I'm sure you've seen this too, where somebody's holding the pole like this and they're going. I've seen that a number of times. And, in my older age, I've just gotten to the point of not saying anything unless the person seems like they would like some help. And then I kind of hint at, hey, you might want to turn that around and do it this way. But anyway, so you typically release line by opening what's called the bail. This right here is the bail. You open that up. Usually I line this up right here because your line would be right here coming off of this indentation, if you can see that. And I would open it up and you would throw, and the line would come off like this. It would just come off and up. And you can see that in some of my videos, but you would just see that line come off like that in really like a vertical fashion. And what this allows you to do is, one, it allows you to use really light line, but it also allows you, at least for me anyway, I feel like I have more control with spinning gear. I can use lighter gear. I feel like I can be more accurate with really light presentations, especially in very tight situations. I'm more comfortable skipping with a spinning reel, and skipping means you're just like you skip a rock, you skip a lure across the water, either to put it under something or put it next to something. And I'm just more comfortable with this. Some people are more comfortable with the bait caster. We'll talk about that in a second. But typically, if you're just starting out, this is a easier and more forgiving reel setup. And so what I mean by that is, certainly you will get line twists. Line will twist up at some point, and that can be aggravating. But by and large, you're going to be able to make multiple casts with very little detriment occurring. You don't have to be a pro at it. You don't have to have a ton of practice. If you've seen if you've seen videos with my daughter London, she uses a spinning reel. She's learned to use it very well, even at a very early age. It was something that was easy for her to do. You can tighten the tension here by turning it clockwise, and this is too tight actually. And then you can loosen it up by going counterclockwise. And I wish I had some line on here so you could see what would happen, because when you loosen it up and you pull the line, just like when you get a fish, that line itself will actually begin to just come out at somewhat of a slow rate, depending on how much force you're putting on it. But typically, if you're new to fishing, or if you're fishing with very light tackle, or again, in certain situations where, especially for me, if I'm like vertical jigging and I want to drop something straight down, it's easy because I can just open the bail. And sometimes you've even seen me do this in videos. I'll just let it go, just let it drop straight down. So this affords me the opportunity to be able to do that. Again, very easy to use and get comfortable with. So That's why I typically use a spinning rod when I'm throwing lighter finesse type things, which is like a worm or a single tail grub, or something that's in the range of like a 1/8 ounce or a 3/16 ounce, or something that's really, really small. I typically wouldn't throw something that's like a 1/2 ounce or, you know, a 3/4 ounce on something like this. I would use my bait caster for that. Now, the downside of this is you're not going to get the distance you can get with a bait caster. You can get much more distance with a bait caster as far as casting goes. At least I do anyway. I can still get a pretty good distance with this. And I can even outcast some people, you know, on their bait caster with my spinning gear. But if you have somebody that's a pro with a bait caster, they're going to outcast you every time with that. So this is your spinning reel. That's some of the pros and cons of it. If you're new to fishing, I would recommend starting with this because you're always going to need it at some degree or at some point. This is a bait caster, so you can clearly see there's a difference just in the physical appearance of the two reels. And so remember, this is going on vertically. This is really the spool. So when I say that, I mean the spool here is vertical. It's going up and down. On a bait caster, your spool is horizontal. So going across. And so your line's gonna spool on going across this versus doing this, which is what was happening on the spinning. And so with the bait caster, there's quite a few things that you can do. With the bait caster, you can see it's a little more compact. You can fit it in your hand. This is a right hand retrieve. And so I'll go back to what I was gonna say a minute ago. So the benefit for me, and I didn't do this on purpose, it just kind of happened by accident because growing up, when I fished with a spin cast, which is a bit different. I don't have one of those right now, but or a closed face reel, as some people call it. I would always use a right-handed one because I was right-handed, and I would just throw like that. But when I would use what we call then an open face or a spinning reel, I would always use my left hand. And so the benefit of that now is when I'm out fishing, and I've been fishing a lot, throwing with this, reeling with my right hand, I can actually switch and start reeling with my left hand, and it gives my right hand a bit of a break. And so again, I didn't do that on purpose, but I like the ability to be able to flip back and forth so I can do something different and use either hand with those techniques. And so again, I'm using finesse stuff with this mainly, or vertical jigging, dropping stuff. With this, predominantly, I'm swimming something. I am launching this thing because again, this is gonna give me more distance on here. Typically, if I'm fishing something that's top water, I'm gonna use this again because I get great distance throwing it. A crankbait, a chatterbait. Many people do this with a jig. They use a bait casting reel, especially if you're going with something heavier. If you're talking 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce, 1 ounce higher, certainly, you're probably gonna be throwing on a bait caster and not your spinning gear. And so it has a couple of features to it. On the side, most of them anyway have a braking system. And I'm not gonna go into the types of braking systems because that's a little more advanced. But the other thing is you have to have some skill with throwing this. So you have to have your braking system set correctly based on the weight of the lure you're throwing. And then you have to have your tension knob, which is this right here, set correctly. And so there's a bit more strategy and technique that goes into using a bait caster versus using a spinning reel. You can basically put line on this, go out, start throwing. You're gonna be pretty good right off the bat. With this, it's gonna take some practice. It took me quite a while to get used to it. It also has this star drag here that you use that can control, you know, what your drag is set to. Remember here, it's on the top and you turn it. Here, this is on the side. And so I would use this because this allows me to get more distance. In longer term casts, I feel like I have more control. I'm able to fight fish, in my opinion, better with this. I feel more comfortable with this, especially when I'm fishing swim baits or crankbaits. And so those are some of the advantages of using it. Really, the only one downside of it is you can't just, I don't think you can be a novice and just pick it up and roll with it and you'll be good. You're gonna get what's called backlashes or a bird's nest, which means you're gonna cast and the line is going to overrun on this spool, and that's gonna not be a fun time for you. So I would encourage you to get the spinning reel if you're looking for one. But that's the difference between the two. Again, you're looking at a right-handed retrieve here and a left-handed here, but you can switch these very easily. You can't switch these. You can't just take this off and put it on this side. You would have to get a left-handed reel if that's what you wanted to use. Again, this is a right-handed one. So anyway, those are just my thoughts. Again, let me add this. I think this is more powerful, like as far as reeling. Again, that's why I think I feel more control when I'm using this versus using the spinning gear. But that's kind of the difference between the two, between a spinning reel and a bait casting reel. And if you're looking to get one, I would encourage you to start with the spinning reel if you're new. If you're getting a bait caster, the strategy I used was I got a lower end bait caster first and kind of, bird nested a bunch, kind of broke it in, kind of got used to it before I went and got a higher end reel. And some people might disagree with that. They might say go get a higher end one, but I wouldn't want to go get a higher end one and just start making a bunch of mistakes with it. Although at the same time, some of your higher end ones have more control as far as not backlashing or overrunning with the line. And so, that might be something you're interested in. But that's what I would do if it were me. So anyway, I hope this has been helpful. Difference between bait caster and spinning reel and why I use them in different situations. Hopefully this has helped shed some light on your reel decisions in the future. If it hasn't, definitely let me know. Leave some comments or questions below. We hope that you have a good day and a good night. We really appreciate you watching this video. We will see you next time.